the City of Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission is composed of volunteer citizens appointed by the City Council. The Commission is the designated hearing body for a range of land use applications, including general plan amendments, rezones, conditional use permits, and amendments to the zoning code. Upon recommendation by the Commission, general plan amendments, rezones, and zoning code amendments proceed forward to the Peoria City Council for final action. For conditional use permits, the Commission will make a final decision subject to appeal. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules for procedure requirements to allow an impartial and efficient hearing, and all Commission meetings are open to the public under the Arizona Open Meeting Law. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. Once called, City staff will give a presentation of the case, followed by a presentation from the applicant if they so desire. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public who have submitted a speaker's request form will be called to speak by the Commission Chair. The applicant may be called to provide additional information, clarification, or a rebuttal. The Commission will discuss the case, may ask additional questions, and take action. Any member of the public wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant at the end of the dais. When speaking, please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes and try not to repeat statements already made by others. We welcome your comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation.
Good evening. Welcome to the October 3rd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Peoria. We've already had the opening statement. We'll do a quick roll call. Chair Fighters present. Vice Chair Waitman Powell.
Present.
Secretary Nelson.
Present.
Commissioner Cottrell.
Present.
Commissioner Konkowski is not present. Commissioner Myers is not present. Commissioner Villasenor.
Present.
Great. I will make a last call for speaker request forms for any of the agenda or non-agenda items. Seeing none, we will move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. All items on the consent are considered routine in nature, have been reviewed by the Commission in advance, and will be enacted in one motion. Single item on the consent for the evening. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. Now we move to the regular agenda, new business. First item is item 2R, water services presentation and possible discussion regarding city's water resources and water conservation programs.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. I'm going to start it off this evening, and then we'll turn it over. So for our more seasoned commissioners, you may recall that we have been fortunate to have speakers from other city departments from time to time to present on a variety of topics. Continuing that tradition, tonight we are joined by two esteemed members, although one's going to be a little diminished after tonight, we may see. Two esteemed members from our Water Services Department who will provide an overview on the city's water resources and water conservation programs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna Norris, and she's going to do introductions and get the conversation rolling.
Chair and Commission, thank you for having me, as well as my colleague Sawyer Treese. Lori indicated that water resources has been here before, as well as water conservation, I believe. But I myself have not been here in front of you all representing water resources, so it's nice to meet you. Go to the next slide. Okay, so we've got a short agenda, but the landscape for this evening will be to first talk about water resources. I'm going to start by laying the foundation for understanding how we utilize water resources in Peoria, what supplies we have available to us, and that will hopefully lay the groundwork for us to then talk about some of our challenges as a city and how we are addressing those challenges, a multi-pronged strategy to make sure we can make it through those challenging times. Sawyer, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself as well if you'd like.
Sure, why not? Sawyer Treese, Water Conservation Specialist in the Sustainability and Water Conservation Division, who are the only ones in the audience. Here to support.
Yeah. So then after I speak, I'll take a break so that you can ask any questions, so you don't have to save them all to the very end. And then Soria will talk about water conservation programs and give you all a little bit of a peek into the sustainability dashboard that's somewhat recent. So without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. So I recognize that this map on your screen might appear a little busy at first, but I promise to walk you through it. So I want you to hopefully leave this slide with an understanding that it's important to understand not only what our water resources are, but where they come from. That's really interconnected to the challenges that we face and also the way that we're going to be able to address those challenges successfully. So if you look at that map, you're going to start by looking at that orange area, and hopefully it looks familiar to you. It's the city of Peoria. So City of Peoria is located actually within 2 different groundwater subbasins. That's the yellow outline on the map there. And then moving over to those purple dots on the left-hand side of the city, those represent our 3 wastewater treatment plants. So you've got acronyms there, JXRF, BRRF, and BDRF. So at the top, in the northern part, you've got your Jomax Reclamation Facility. In the middle part of the city, you have Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility. BRR, I was trying to figure this out, Beardsley Road Reclamation Facility. And then BDRF is actually Butler Drive Reclamation Facility. Those acronyms at first I thought were swapped, and then I was happy to put together that they were not. So that is where our sewage flows into those, and then out comes highly treated Class A effluent, thanks to our amazing operators who we have in water services. And so that is a really effluent, that highly treated reclaimed water is a really critical piece of Peoria supply. You're going to hear me talk about that a few times tonight. So how we use that water currently is 2 different ways. We use that directly on landscape in some select areas of our city. So it's used up in the Vistancia area for the golf courses up there. It goes into a lake, and then they're able to then put that on golf courses, as well as some of the medians and right-of-ways. You'll hear like a purple pipe system. You all have probably seen signs in different areas. We also have an example of it right outside our doors here over in Centennial Plaza Park. That is also watered by our reclaim from Butler Drive Reclamation Facility down in the southern part of our city. So now if we move to the right-hand side or the eastern side of our city, there's those X's on there. X marks the spot for our treatment plants. There's 2 X's on your screen. I would be remiss to not acknowledge that we actually have a 3rd very small treatment plant up in Quintero, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to really focus on the 2 X's on your screen. Those are our large surface water treatment plants that serve the majority of the city. So that X that is along the red line, that red line is the CAP Canal. The CAP Canal system, you're probably all familiar, conveys Colorado River water up from Lake Powell and then Lake Mead. And that X represents our Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant. That is a treatment plant that we co-own with the city of Glendale. We have a maximum capacity of 24 million gallons a day there, and it's a really important source of water for our residents. That Colorado River water, which is then treated at Pyramid Peak, is primarily served north of Bell Road. And then we also use Colorado River water that just comes straight off the CAP Canal, but we store that water underground. So that's the 2 ways that we use that CAP water. Going down to the southern X, that's it's located along, they almost look like veins to me or something, but those blue kind of squiggly lines, those are SRP canals. So SRP canals convey Salt and Verde River water. If you look at the map, you'll see that green area on the screen. That's representing the Salt and Verde River watersheds. There's a lot of smaller little streams and creeks that run into those, so they're technically really conveying all of the water that flows from the Salt and Verde River watersheds, and then it ends up in those SRP canals. And for Peoria, it then ends up at Greenway Water Treatment Plant. An important distinction with SRP water as opposed to CAP water, both are water coming from rivers, both move through canals. SRP water you can only use on lands that have rights to that water. So it's not quite as flexible. We can't use that water really north of Bell Road very much. It's pretty limited to being in the lands that are associated with SRP rights. The last thing that we have as part of our, the last resource we have as part of our supply are wells. I didn't put wells on this map because it would just be hideous. So, but I want you to use your imagination and picture little dots all over the city. We've got wells located all over the city that are also a part of our supply. Those wells can pump groundwater, and they can also pump the water that we store underground. So I mentioned we store Colorado River water underground. We also store reclaimed and effluent water underground. The wells are a way that we're able to access that water by pumping it back out. Okay, next. So hopefully your takeaway from all that information, one of it could be that we have a diverse supply. We're not just relying on one water source here, and that is very fortunate for Peoria. What that also does is it sets the stage for us to be able to be a designated water provider. You've probably heard that we have something called a 100-year assured water supply. We're designated. We have 100 years of water. They're all saying the same thing. It's that we have gone to the state, particularly the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and we have submitted a robust application that they have said, okay, you have been able to demonstrate that we have enough renewable water that outweighs the demand we have after 10 years of projected growth. So what you do in this application, and I'm going to do a short explanation. If you have questions, we can talk about it. But we just went to the state. Well, I say just. I think it was actually a year ago. It was December of 2023 that I was in front of council to submit our application to update this designation. So this is something where we're continually making sure that we're tracking our supplies and tracking our demand to be able to continually update this on about a 10 or 15-year time cycle. And we, in that most recent application, demonstrated, we're still waiting for the department to approve it, but we did demonstrate that we have enough supplies in 2035 to meet that demand that we projected for 2035, and that those supplies are reliable not just in 2035, but in 2135. So that's where that 100 years comes in. You have to show that the supplies that you have to meet your growing demand are consistent and reliable over 100-year time scales. That's where that 100-year assured water supply kind of nomenclature comes in. I think maybe it might be obvious why that is important, but I think just from what I just said, it sounds important, right, that we have water to supply our citizens for many years in the future, but it is a pretty remarkable program as far as Western Water goes. It's pretty unparalleled consumer protection for home buyers and businesses or our residents. So that is one piece of why it's really important that we maintain that designation. It gives us an economic advantage as well. And in my world, I think one of the things that I appreciate most about it is that it promotes and honestly it requires us to have a long-term water supply planning horizon. So we're never just thinking 5 years out, 10 years out. We're honestly thinking 100 years out, which is really important. I want to draw your eyes to that pie chart real quick before we leave this slide. So that pie chart is just a breakdown of exactly what was on that previous slide. I wanted to give you the spatial context for what's on this pie chart before. But you can see here that CAP is the bulk of our supplies. I think actually for 2024 will be a little even closer to 60% of our water will be coming from Pyramid Peak or treated CAP water. Next after that is SRP water, which is again that Greenway water treatment plant. You have some of that water reclaimed that's going to meet direct landscaping needs right now. And then you also have about 7% or so of well pumping. And you can see there that that's pulling out water that's stored underground as well as what we would report as groundwater. So, Chair and Commission, I imagine you all in these positions are well aware that part of being an effective planner is being able to identify challenges and create plans to address those challenges. For water resources, I think it's fair to say that our main challenges at the moment can be placed into kind of these three broad buckets. So first, you're going to recall that we just spoke about how about 60%, I think it was 50-something percent, but we're getting closer to 60, of our supply comes from the Colorado River water. You probably also are aware of some headlines that have been going around for many years now about the reliability of Colorado River water. And so inherently that creates a challenge. We need to make sure that we're prepared to replace that supply. I'm going to get a little bit more into Colorado River and what's happening on the river in the next slide. But just know that cuts are coming, but that the timing and exact scale of when these cuts will happen and how large they will be specifically is not something that we can know definitively right now, so we've got to be able to plan for a wide range of scenarios. Second, we have the right water. It's not always in the right place at the current moment. An example of this could be that we have historically been reliant on pumping wells that maybe are not optimally located. However, this is a challenge that I have actually some great examples of how we've already started to address this and have actively addressed it and are moving the needle on this today. One quick example of that would be the large investment that council has made on the wells located, like Northern Peoria well field, those wells located up at Lake Pleasant Parkway and Loop 303. Those are optimally located wells once we drill them because they're very close to where we have stored Colorado River water underground, and they're in a place where we are able to back up that Colorado River supply. So that would be a great example of right water, right place. We have also, I'm going to talk about in a couple slides, just been a bit over-reliant on well pumping in the past, and I'll get into more of the logic behind that, but that's something we've also really moved the needle on in the last couple of years in a pretty significant way. One other example of right water, not the right place at this moment, is that we need to be looking, I said that reclaimed is very important to Peoria. That is something that's going to come up again and again in this presentation. And so we're fortunate to have a drought-resilient supply in our reclaimed supply. But that doesn't mean that necessarily where our reclaimed supply is located at the present moment is exactly where we might need it in the future. And so we need to be able to consider how we can convey that to where it's needed. And finally, we are a growing city with an influx supply that's not unlike, honestly, anybody else in the valley, any of these other cities. And so that's the way that we need to frame all of our planning, our decision-making, our investments are within that context, right? That we're a growing city with an influx supply, and just make sure that we're planning accordingly for that. So even though we're just going over challenges, it is not just bad news. In fact, this presentation is going to share a lot of the things that we're doing to prepare for, implement, and invest to ensure that we are water secure and ready to meet these challenges head on. Okay, so I said I would talk a bit about Colorado River water. My understanding is that the last time Water Services was in front of you, Chair and Commission, that a lot of that presentation was actually focused on going into details about what was happening on the river. I'm not going to go into a ton of details simply because there's too many unknowns, and I don't want to give you all information unless I can tell you definitively that that's what's going to happen, and we're not in that place right now. What I can tell you definitively is that the agreements that are used to govern that river right now expire at the end of 2026. And so there is a paradigm shift that we're kind of working up to. And those negotiations of what that will ultimately look like are ongoing. There are 5 major proposals that have been brought forward, what you will hear sometimes as post-2026, meaning that those guidelines expire in 2026, so anything post-2026 are proposals that have been brought forward by a number of parties. One of those parties are the lower basin states. Arizona is a lower basin state. That's on the map right there. So lower basin includes Nevada, California, and Arizona. The most favorable of those 5 proposals is, unsurprisingly, from the lower basin states. That does not mean it is the most likely to be adopted, but it is the most favorable. And I point that out just to say that even in the most favorable of outcomes, that's still about a 20% optimistically reduction to Peoria CAP water beginning as soon as 2027. So again, it emphasizes that we definitely, that's a challenge we have, but one we are prepared to take on and need to make investments to be able to meet. Okay, this one is a success story, which is important to share. So I talked about right water, wrong place. I spoke about those Loop 303 Lake Pleasant Parkway wells. Another big win for Peoria Water Services has been an overall reduction in the reliance on wells since 2022 and particularly since 2023. So the way I like to frame our well utilization is that you kind of want to think about well utilization a bit like dipping into your savings account. It's there for when you need it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use it. It's there for when you need it. But when you have supply coming into your checking account, you should probably hopefully rely on your checking account first before dipping into that savings account. So putting that in the water context, CAP water and SRP water, as we have them in their full amount year by year, is a lot like having a regular paycheck coming into our checking account, and we should be utilizing that checking account and those renewable supplies to their full extent before we move over to using our savings account or our wells. So we recognize this as a goal, and part of really the most significant aspect of being able to see that bar graph that you get to on 2023, where our well pumping dropped down to 7.4%, which is that blue part of the graph that gets smaller in that year, is because of a really significant infrastructure investment that was made in Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant. So Pyramid Peak Water Treatment Plant was expanded. That allowed us to use more CAP water. It allowed us to meet demand that otherwise would have been dependent on being met by wells, by that renewable supply of CAP, and it allowed us to shave off that blue part of the graph down to a much smaller number. It took a utility-wide effort. It wasn't so simple as just expanding the plant. It's a change in operation paradigms that had been, set in place for a long time. But we, meaning not me at all, who doesn't work in the field, but the wonderful people who do work in water services out in the field really took this on head on. And through that, we were able to smash out of the park a 2030 sustainability goal that we had set to have less than 15% of our supply on an annual basis coming from wells. So that was something we had hoped to reach by 2030, and we far exceeded it as of 2023. We're on track to do something similar for 2024. I can't tell you that the number will be 7%, but it will be less than that 15% from the last projection I looked at. So surface water use continues to be up, and our groundwater use is down, and that also saves us money on electricity costs for those wells. So a big overall win and a positive story for Peoria. So as you all know, City Council has identified one of its top priorities as water security. So what does that really mean, and how do we make sure that we are advancing the goal? Water security requires deliberate long-range planning. These are big challenges that we're facing, and they're going to take innovative, durable solutions to be able to address them. They're also taking multi-solution. It takes multiple solutions. There's no silver bullet. You'll hear that a lot in water right now, and it's certainly true. We need to be thinking about things for advancing solutions that meet the needs of the near term, the midterm, and the long term, and to be doing these things concurrently. And I think most importantly, it takes substantial capital investment. So if you look at the white boxes on your screen, this is just a smattering of some of the things that we're doing to try to address those challenges. So we're taking a multi-pronged approach. We're not going all in on one solution. We're going all in on many solutions, which gives me a lot of confidence in where we're heading. I'm going to talk through just a couple of these. So first, an important one, we are a proactive participant in getting replacement supplies for CAP. I sit on a Bartlett Dam Need Committee and Steering Committee where Peoria is investing in getting water hopefully out of Bartlett Dam if that project goes through. We're part of a Roosevelt Flood Control Space Water Pilot Project. These both are SRP projects that would give us water that we don't have to use on SRP lands. They're certainly generational projects that we're excited to be a part of and are part of our story going forward. We are implementing best practices for wise water growth. Sawyer and his team has come before you before and talked, I believe, about ordinance changes. We adopted a non-functional turf ordinance. That's part of that best practice for water-wise growth. So that's something that we need to continue to invest in and think innovatively about. And then one other thing I wanted to point out, which is very, very important, is that we need to be thinking about the strategic utilization of our reclaimed supply and how to move that supply to where we need it. So we have a study underway right now to figure out the best option for the city to do this. We know that reclaimed is part of our future, and exactly what that looks like, we want to make sure that we are deliberate and wise and investing in what is the best for not only tomorrow, but the tomorrow's tomorrow as well in that context. Finally, we continue to expand and enhance our conservation programs. Sawyer's going to talk a bit more about that, but I think that's also really important because that's the piece where the community gets to be a part of the solution as well, which is quite meaningful and impactful. So if you leave today from my presentation with anything, I hope you leave with knowing that Peoria's water future is bright. We have a really strong plan, and we have amazing people in all levels of our organization executing it and working on it every day. But these challenges are big, and they're going to take years of coordinated effort and continued investments by council and the community to overcome. It's important that we are always planning for the next hurdle, not just 10 years out, but 20, 30, 50 years out, and being dynamic in our approach. I like to say that as long as Peoria continues to invest in its water future, Peoria will be water secure. I genuinely believe that. And we're on a great path right now with a lot of council support, and I look forward to seeing how we move forward into a pretty bright future. So that's it for me. I am going to turn it over to Sawyer to talk more about conservation programs and sustainability, but I want to pause just to give you all the chance to ask some questions so you don't have to just sit on them while Sawyer goes on and on.
To the joke.
Great, thank you, Ms. Norris. Commissioners have any questions for Ms. Norris? Mr. Nelson?
Great. Thank you. You answered most of the question I was
We
quickly
kept
scribbling
crossing them,
down here.
kept crossing them off.
That's
Yes,
amazing.
Good job. That's,
I'm always trying to think of the questions that I would have, so- and then I try to,
Well done.
yeah.
so I'm just curious, so we have a summer where we have another very low rainfall summer, very exceptionally dry. I'm one of those who anticipate that's going to get better. That's probably going to be the norm. How does that impact, when we have a dry summer, does that kind of throw your numbers into a jumble and we got to kind of go back to the drawing board, or does one season a disaster not make? I'm just trying to kind of give some perspective to people who may be watching, as well as for myself.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's important to think about things, so you have different, just like I talked about time scales, water resources too is a lot about like spatial scales. So if we think locally, we think in Peoria specifically, what does it do for us when we have a dry summer here? We're going to see our demand numbers go up a little bit, right? You're going to see, that maybe we have a little bit higher water use. It's not astronomical. I will say that often for planning purposes, we take those dry years and we use them to project so that we are conservative. So locally, that's how it's impacted. And regionally, with Colorado River, actually a lot of Colorado River issues are stemming, from snowpack, so it's more of a winter phenomenon, and then also just from an over-allocation of that supply. So it's twofold. It's twofold in a bad way, in that it was already over-allocated, and then when you see these dry winters, so not just summer, but not getting the snowpack that then turns into runoff in the spring, that does impact the availability of that supply. Does that answer your question,
It does,
Commission
yeah,
member?
thank you. I did have one more question, and it's kind of a broad question. I hate to, if you don't have an answer, that's fine, but I'm just curious how we as a commission can positively impact our water efforts and our water security. I mean, what are the kind of things we should be asking when projects come to us? What are some things we should be considering?
Thank you, Commission member, Commission Nelson, for the question. That's a wonderful question. Warms my heart as a water resource planner. I think thinking that way, honestly, and this is not a call out, thinking that way is the most important first step of what can we do to make sure that when you're seeing planning cases, or just I think reaching out to the water resources team, or reaching out to Lori, who can then reach out to the water resources team and say, hey, what's our plan with this? Is there concerns with this? How do we plan to supply this? And we will have an answer for you. And so just being cognizant of it is the most important thing, that we're thinking about how does this fit into our water resource portfolio? How does it fit into the vision of our city? And then how are we planning for this? And just making sure that there's that coordinated effort, which we do a great job of already, but asking those questions is really important. And then I always have to go back to that investment is so important, and I know that does happen more at the council level, but just even as a resident of Peoria, I think something I like to tell everybody is honestly, just paying your water bill is is a way that you can support water services, because that's the investment that we need, right? We're an enterprise fund. We get our investments in large part from folks paying their water bill and supporting the utility through that. And so I think just thinking about the interconnectedness of the investments that are needed for the growth that we're accepting, and being able to just understand that there is an interplay there and there's a solution path, but that it needs to be deliberate and thoughtful, and the questions do need to be asked.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Chair,
thank you.
Commissioner, if I could kind of chime in and add a little bit additional shading onto that conversation. So as Jenna mentioned, before you, we took a text amendment. In fact, Mr. Gleason was heading that one up, and that was the landscaping conversation and text amendment that we brought forward to you that went through council. So that's one part on the conservation side that Jenna has talked about, because it's a two-prong approach. So there are code changes that commission will see that will go to council ultimately for consideration. More are planned as we continue to look through the code and make updates as needed. But more importantly, as we're bringing projects before you on cases, they are a part of the review process. And so there are silent partners, and that's why we call them esteemed. Actually, most of the time we call them our water gurus, because we're working both with our engineering, traffic, et cetera folks. So you're seeing one part of the case in front of you, but behind the scenes, the conversation's being had. Here's the proposal, here's the impact. Part of that goes into the staff analysis that you see within your staff reports. It also goes into the general plan analysis that you've been seeing time and time again. I've been up here way too many times talking general plan, but that's also a part of the conversation as well. So we work hand in hand on the analysis, and we continue to make refinements as needed.
Thank you, Ms. Ebert. I think this dovetails to, I think, the last meeting, one of the last two meetings, where we asked Mr. Gleason, was water capacity considered on that particular project? And I think you touched on the fact that that's one of the first things you guys consider when evaluating a project, so.
Yeah, Chair and Commissioner, if I can just add on a little bit to what Lori said. We worked Cody and Lori both also, something we've been working on in the utility for a couple years now is update to our integrated water utility master plan. IWAMP is the acronym that you'll hear, and that is where we are projecting demand going forward and anticipating what the city is going to look like over a 30-year planning horizon, and 50-year planning horizon, I believe, actually. And Cody and Lori were both a big part of that process. So we already do a great job of integrating, but it never hurts to ask those questions and to ensure that that we're working together. And yeah, that's an important part of it.
I'd just like to know that the planning team has already vetted this out well in advance of it ever getting to
Absolutely.
getting to us. So, Commissioner Cottrell.
Thank you. Now, I have 37 questions.
Oh, gosh.
No. I'll try and keep, maybe I can talk to you afterward. I do have some more technical, but maybe not needed for here.
Meet our engineer.
Civil engineer.
I'm curious about the ratios that you use in your projections, residential versus industrial uses versus agriculture. I know there's probably not a huge amount of agriculture left.
It's not.
Is that, I'm assuming that's taken into account? I mean, are you using some of the new zoning districts that, like the state land, are you using those proposed areas to add that into your estimates for what's going to be used?
Yeah, Commissioner Member Cottrell, I do think probably for some of this, I bet we can get into some of the details better in a conversation after this, but what I can answer, it actually goes back to what I just brought up, was that IWAMP, so that's that Integrated Water Utility Master Plan. We hired Jacobs Consulting Group for that. They're an international, really regarded consulting group who have worked diligently on doing demand projections for us. So though Lori says Brett and I are water gurus, we also depend on other water gurus and demand experts and forecasting experts and things like that to be able to make sure that we're getting the best data. So to answer your question in short, yes, that's certainly accounted for. The different zoning types, and if we're looking at industrial use versus residential use, and there's a multi-hundred page memo I can send you if you are interested that goes through all the details of how we do those demand projections, and I would be happy to get with you offline and go into some more of the details for you.
The reason I knew what you were going to say, I knew the answer there.
Yeah.
I would, putting myself in the position of just a homeowner who's not knowledgeable in detail, and they look at all of this stuff that's coming and the anticipation, Lori comes in and shows all of these 1,600 acres of stuff, and we want them to know that it's already being thought out and planned for within that.
Yeah.
Second question, and I'll make it brief. You mentioned the Bartlett water. How is that working? So that's within SRP's use area. Is that a new agreement with SRP? You're drawing the water before they claim it? Is that how that's working, and then pipe it directly over?
I'm going to repeat your question so I make sure I understand what you're asking. So I understand you to be asking, because it's an SRP supply, and I spoke about how SRP supplies need to be used on SRP lands, why is Bartlett any different, and why would that help us? Is that a
Correct.
fair?
Correct.
Okay. Yes, wonderful question. And the reason is because actually it's inherent to them raising the dam. So it's actually because it's new water that is created, then you are not, it doesn't have to be used on Salton Verde, like historic lands. And so they have accounted for all the water in that system, and those are the water rights are tied to the kind of infrastructure and the structure of those dams and the amount of water that was in place at that time. And then for Roosevelt Flood Control Space Water, for Bartlett, for these new projects that are happening, a really critical piece of them is that it's water that doesn't have to go to SRP lands because it's new water essentially. Is this, simple way to put it. That's a lawyer would do a much better job at putting that in legalese, but hopefully that still got the same message across.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice loophole to take advantage of.
Yeah.
And the last one, and is just more maybe for Lori, when we see these developments come in, I know there's landscaping code that says so many trees per foot, all these things. Yes, they're all water tolerant, species required. But is there kind of an infighting where you're saying we want all these trees and they still use water, and yet we're saying don't use a lot of water? And is there some thoughts in adjusting the code that way to say, fine, we'll relax some of the landscaping in certain areas in order to conserve more water?
Chair, Commissioner Control, I'm actually not going to steal Cody's thunder, so I'm going to provide you starting of an answer, and he can go much more in depth. I'm sure it's ingrained into him. So the landscaping code that we brought before commission that's in place right now, we evaluated the ratios of trees, ground cover, and shrubs. There was a wonderful analysis that we provided with visual representations, SketchUp included. Cody did a great job on that one. So what we showed and what we provided was the reduced ratios that we were looking for. The focus became more on the trees and the shrubs, less on the ground cover, because of the water savings in that regard. So it was a win-win for the development community because it was a reduction in the amount of cost for the landscaping, but it was also a significant water reduction for us in terms of what we were seeing for it. But at the same time, the aesthetics were the same. And Cody, I don't know if you want to add anything additional.
Yeah, I think that last part is really important because we wanted to focus on how are we going to make a measurable impact for our community, but not have it look like a barren wasteland, We don't want it to look like we just sprayed everything and hope nothing grows. We wanted to have a beautiful aesthetic for our community and, really the ability to drive by something and see an attractive property or an attractive development that you want to go to, you want to interact with. So when we did the evaluation, we did some SketchUp. I need to work on my skills there, but the point of that was really to illustrate, okay, measurably this looks the same. We have the same aesthetic within our community if we transition to this code, but here are the actual numbers associated with it. Here's the water savings, not only, from a gallon perspective, but also cost-wise for the developer. The other item that we've talked about and, want to look at as we move forward to what we refer to as, phase 2 of that landscape update is, do we want to evaluate maximums? Because, the trouble that you run into is, yeah, we lowered the minimum, but landscape architects, it seems like they're almost, they're the equivalent of attorneys and words. The more that they throw on a page, the more that they get paid. And what we want to evaluate is, what is it that makes sense? What is it that provides us that attractive community, but also lowers the actual necessary water use? And without those maximums, sometimes what we're seeing is we're really trying to encourage folks, you don't need 100 lantana at the entry of this community. You can cut that back, still have an attractive community, and save a ton of water. So I think that's one of those things for us to keep in mind as we go forward, is how do we further incentivize folks to lower their water impact?
And Chair, Commission, if I could, Commissioner Cottrell, just to add to Cody's point, from a water conservation perspective, the amount of water that it takes to establish the trees and then maintain them is simply a trade-off for all of their benefits, for the shading, for the cooling, for all the positive externalities that Cody has mentioned. And so that's how we do support one another. And thank you, Lori, for also mentioning that it was Cody's efforts that made that successful. So we talk behind the scenes, but ultimately that was Cody.
I really like hearing that you did an analysis, SketchUp or not, that says by reducing trees or adding, that there's, a balance there. We do a lot of light industrial buildings, commercial buildings at work. Very few of our clients ever say, hey, I want this to look really, really cool, and throw palm trees and lantana everywhere and grass. Almost all of them say, what's the code minimum? Just do the code minimum. And so it's an opportunity for a city to say, let's reduce that code minimum with the water as the focus, so that those guys are allowed to do that, and not, they're all happy to let the trees die afterward if they could.
Thank you.
And just one thing I would add that I neglected to mention is, we also, in talking with Water Services, we wanted to evaluate what's the most effective use of that water. So we also analyze, for every drop, if you will, or gallon of water, we wanted to look at what's the benefit. And, the real evaluation is when you look at things like, heat island effect and shade opportunities for pedestrians, you're getting more out of a tree than you are shrubs or ground cover. So that was one of the big reasons for, a little bit more reduction in the number of shrubs, and substantially more reduction in ground cover, because you get more out of them as you scale up to those larger order items.
Thank you. Vice Chair Waitman-Powell?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you, Ms. Norris, for your in-depth presentation. I was very happy that Ms. Deaver hopped in and really talked about the presentation we had just a while back and talking about water preservation. Cody, I'm happy that you mentioned your research, because if you're just like me, a resident here with a home, I was just thinking about, what am I going to do for my landscaping? This was perfect. So I was going through this and I was like, okay, well, this is great, because I'm just like, I need something that doesn't take a lot of effort. My question is, as a city, of course, we can do our due diligence, but I just want to make sure, because I love this package. This was an awesome touch. I don't know who did this, but I love this sticker. Getting this information out to the community, because of course, yes, we're having research, right? We're talking about what the code minimum is when developers come, and we're trying to find ways to basically cut down our water usage. But is this going out to our community? Is that something that we have to city? Where are we displaying this? How can we get our community in? Because this is going to be an effort of all of Peoria, and I'm just speaking probably from a young adult perspective, but you know, anyone with a home that is looking to even simply do something new, or like thought they were gonna start that garden in Arizona heat. This is something great to have, that you can have a backyard that looks great, you can have something around your pool and don't have to use a lot of water. So how can we get this to our community, and how are we currently doing that as a city?
Chair and Vice Chair, that is a wonderful question, and that is a beautiful segue into Sawyer's presentation. So if you like that, there's more to come, and I'll let him answer that when he gets into that spot.
All right, I won't jump ahead then. That'll be all right. Thank you.
Mr. Treese?
All right, I'm up.
Oh, one,
One
sorry.
more, I didn't know.
What, it didn't, you weren't on the board. Commissioner Villaseñor, not, we're saving the best for last. Go, please.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Great presentation. Thank you. On the anticipated 20% reduction that's coming with the CAP, how is that percentage determined? Is it based on population? Because I'm assuming all cities are going to receive a reduction. Just kind of a quick high level, how is that determined? I'm curious.
I think, and I have to say this just for education purposes of that, I want to be clear that the 20% is certainly not set in stone. So it could be
Correct.
20%, it could be 30%, it could be something. So, but how those percentages in general would be determined? It becomes like anything with water law in Arizona, it becomes could be a very long-winded answer. But from a high level, how it's determined is more based on the priority of water right. So that 20% was an analysis that Brett Fleck, who's the water resources manager for the city, and myself looked at based on that lower basin proposal, and making assumptions, to be honest. Assumptions of if they follow the law of the river, it's called, and that this amount of water, they know that there's a volume of water that needs to be saved on the Colorado River, or not used, essentially, in order for things to levelize out, essentially. We're seeing the lake levels drop consistently year over year. We, honestly, being Bureau of Reclamation, as well as the resident who reads the paper, you can see that happening. And so Bureau of Reclamation has identified, based on what they call structural deficit, so that would be the amount of water that has long been over allocated on the river, and context with ongoing drought. They've identified, okay, as a starting number, probably about, X amount of water needs to stop being used off of the river. And then from there is where these proposals come in of, well, maybe, this state takes this much of the use. And so these things are broken down more on a state level, and then specifically, once you get into the state, on a water priority level. And so that 20% is going through that kind of scheme. It doesn't have to do with population or even city or anything like that. It has to do with that water is coming down the CAP, and if you were to go all the way through the process and say, we assume this much, and then we assume that they follow the priority system, and we assume that this much gets attributed to this user, then perhaps it looks about 20%, which is why I have to always caveat that these are scenarios, and until we have that record of decision from the federal government and we're operating under that, there's a fair amount of unknown. But
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to get stuck on the 20%, the anticipated significant reduction that is going to be required. And you use the word, they'll determine where the priority is. I think that's my question. What is a priority? I mean,
yeah.
and it's okay, we could perhaps talk about it offline. It's more for my own education on how this works. I know a lot of cities invest in government relations individuals to advocate for our city. Does Peoria have that on staff? We've got someone shaking yes. Okay, that's great. So here comes to the brunt of my question. So this Bartlett Dam is really exciting to me. I commend the city and, getting involved in some of these new projects. If Bartlett Dam is successful, about what percentage is that going to cut off? Does that make from that anticipated 20%? I understand it could be 30% or more, but are we measuring what Bartlett Dam is going to supply for us and make up for that proposed reduction?
That's one where I probably would want to talk to you because it's nuanced. What I can tell you is that we at present moment, as a draft kind of allocation recommendation that committee has come up with about 4,300 acre feet that Peoria would get out of this project. However, we know that that's likely going to be reduced because the federal government is coming in and wanting to have some capacity in Bartlett Dam, actually, to go back to your previous question, to shore up potentially other users of Colorado River water, like that the federal government is
That take
obligated.
a priority over our needs?
Yeah, so and I want to go back, Commissioner Villaseñor, to say that priority, and I should be careful because everything has colloquial, right?
Yeah.
And priority in this context is really a legal term for not the priority or the federal government determining that Peoria has lower priority than Phoenix or Avondale, for example. The priority word in that context is actually about the priority of the water flowing down the CAP for everyone who uses CAP,
Right.
and that's where you get into some great graphs and things I could show you. There's very high priority for those who use the water first in the system, first in time, first in right. That's a phrase that you will hear in water law, and that's very interconnected with priority. So first in time, often higher priority, later in time, lower priority. CAP came online in the context of use of the Colorado River later in time. CAP is a lower priority. So maybe that gives you a little more clarification
It
on
does,
that.
and I'll look forward to hearing an update on how those projects are going. I think your graph on the potential solutions that you're all working on is wonderful, and I'm just a data person, so I would love to see, we're hopeful that this can make up for this. Like, this is the solution to this, and at this capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion
Yeah.
for going forward. But I just have two more questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but congratulations on reducing your dependency on the wells. But I did see that a goal is to drill more wells, so that's counterintuitive, but I get it. Am I mistaken in my understanding that if we reduce what we are pumping out of our wells, that water can still be pumped by other municipalities? Potentially, we could be losing it.
Chair and Commission Member Villaseñor, you're asking very astute questions. There is a bit of a
I
paradox.
told you I like this stuff. Sorry.
I like that you like this stuff. There's a bit of a, you're right, there, you called out a paradox, and that's why I brought up that savings account analogy, because that's what would make sense in my mind if I'm
For
sitting on the
sure.
other side, is that you want to be able to access your savings account when you need it, and you want to not, so that's why we are prioritizing drilling new wells, so that we have that as a savings, we can access that savings account in an interim period when we may need it. And your second
But how do we
question-
protect from other
Yes.
municipalities taking that water
Yeah,
from our
right.
savings account?
The straightforward answer is that there's maybe not, right, the aquifer doesn't have, unfortunately, boundaries that match our city. There are a lot of, we're fortunate to live not only in a state, but in an area, what is called an AMA, an active management area, that does have pretty robust regulation to protect our groundwater levels. Another headline test you'd see was that the Phoenix AMA model was overdrawn and it's stopping development, or this assured water supply program that I mentioned. There's management plans. There's a lot of tools in place at the state level that then cities have to comply with, and our neighboring cities as well have to comply with, and our neighboring private utilities have to comply with, that do help protect those groundwater levels. But you're right, and that goes back to why being able to directly serve supply, like a renewable supply or potentially reclaim supply in the future, is a really positive solution, because it's not able to be sucked up by our neighbors.
Exactly,
right?
and I, for me, that seems like a no-brainer that we should save some of this water so that it isn't taken. My last and final question, and if you could just touch upon it, is, infrastructure is just as important as the actual supply of water. How is the city of Peoria in terms of the delivery system, the actual infrastructure? Are we seeing aging infrastructure? Is this something we should be concerned about in the next decade?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to start my answer to this question to say that I am certainly not the infrastructure expert for the city. That would be somebody who would be more on the operations side, or potentially our deputy director who's very involved in the civil engineering side. What I can say is that Peoria, relative to a lot of our neighboring communities, we're a relatively young community as far as our infrastructure. A lot of our pipes are younger. We don't have a ton of lead issues for that reason. You know, we're not. The bulk of our community wasn't built out in the 50s and 60s like some areas of Phoenix, and so our infrastructure relatively is young, but yes, we're going to constantly have to be investing in our infrastructure and making sure that we're doing great asset management and keeping up with things and replacing things, and that's something that is also a really big initiative of the utility and of the mayor right now. Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Cottrell, last. One more?
One last question, and I brought up by this. The Bartlett water again. I'm visioning in my mind, you know, a pipeline running from Bartlett all the way over here, but am I right in you mentioned CAP, is there some legal exchange that's being worked out at the state level where we get to take CAP water where it's convenient, and then Bartlett water is just put into CAP and sent on, so it's kind of a water for water trade? Is that the ticket?
Chair and Commissioner Cottrell, you all are a smart bunch of cookies. You're thinking ahead. So there wouldn't involve a pipeline with these things, right? They're going to be moving through canal systems. And so the most straightforward way would be to move that through the SRP canal system, but you've identified a great problem in that we don't need that water down where SRP water is used because we're fortunate to have water in that area. So yes, there is a project that Peoria is also involved in. You could identify it in our CIP, our capital improvement project. It's called the CSIF, the CAP SRP Interconnect Facility. It is not something that's been constructed yet, but it's one of the many. I couldn't even fit all of the solutions that we're looking at all on this, and that is part of the utilization of those supplies, is looking at investment in that infrastructure, supporting that project, and then also looking at potentials for exchange partners to kind of work out something exactly like what you're saying, that maybe we essentially trade that water. We give it to somebody downstream, and then they send us their CAP water, and we can take it at Pyramid Peak or something like that. So we're examining all kinds of solutions. I think one last thing I want to say with Bartlett is that Bartlett is not a guarantee. That has to go to federal government. I know you all have seen a lot of stories about dams not always happening, right? There can be a lot of efforts and studies done, and that doesn't mean that they're always come to fruition. There's a lot of optimism in Arizona and a lot of optimism that this is going to be a successful project, and a lot of thoughtful effort has been put into making sure that it's realized, but that is not a guaranteed supply today.
Thank you. Mr. Treese, now the floor is yours.
Thank you. Chair, members of commission, sticker credit goes to Victoria Castor, Water Conservation Coordinator, and packet credit goes to Raven Fielding, Fellow Specialist. So making sure that credit is due there. I am responsible for the fun quarter of the presentation. Starting with state requirements, that is why we exist. So 1980 Groundwater Management Act established water conservation programs. Essentially, we have an annual report each year to the Arizona Department of Water Resources that has increased in intensity over time. We are now at that most intense moment with 20 best management practices from at least 5 different provided categories. I listed those there for reference to these programs that I will now briefly touch on and emphasize some of them that might be of more interest to this environment tonight. Outreach and education, so all residents may visit Digital Peoria to see our sustainability playlists, and you can see Victoria down there in our Xeriscape demonstration garden, which is just outside City Hall, to the northeast of it, with signage and Arizona-friendly plants in 5 distinct zones. So you have tropical, you have child-friendly, no pokey stuff, and as Vice Chair Waitman-Powell suggested, we do provide these booklets and materials that are up on the dais. So in your packet, you will see each of the 4 main booklets, which all of the regional cities provide to residents, so it's the same language. starting with the Yellow Book, which is landscape watering specific to the plants, which we compile into a nice little monthly sheet so that they know how much to water their grass each month, or their desert plants, or even their high water uses, which still exist, but it's good that we do it efficiently. So lots of good information there. The Pink Plant Book is the most popular, that has just been updated this year. And so that provides all the desert plants with nice, pretty pictures, how to find and fix leaks, which we will go to residents and do ourselves at consultations, and then the Xeriscape Design Book. So it's a variety of information. That is the name of conservation. We are education, we are tools, we are the systemic change. We're trying to have conservation as a culture in Peoria. That's the vision. Next, youth education is a central part of that, starting with puppet shows. So we contract out Great Arizona Puppet Theater, who specializes in the saguaros and the zoner and the drip, water cycle stuff. Each year, Jenna's favorite, we have the Project Wet Festival. So twice a year, around 600 kids at each festival. Jenna will, like tonight, present about the groundwater model and the watershed model, and so the children always love her. We also have water magic shows and partner with our Peoria libraries. They are directly communicating with the youth, and so if they ever need support for those programs, we are here. Adult conservation programs. I mentioned the consultations before. We will provide personalized water budgets based on their landscape use. And so that top right picture there, you can see red, green, and blue. That is xeriscape grass and surface water, respectively. Put it into budgets and help people understand better what their landscape actually needs. It's all about that efficiency. And then sometimes that red bar on that budget is their actual use. You can see it's much higher in the winter, and that is a consistent case. They're overwatering in the winter. We will help adjust the schedule to get those water savings realized. Rebate programs are entirely a part of this because we want to incentivize those behavioral changes. And so starting with the high efficiency toilet rebate, the federal standard is 1.6. We can get that down to 1.28 with the WaterSense certified flush. Smart irrigation controllers, same thing, WaterSense certified. That'll just adjust the irrigation programming to the weather. And then grass to desert plants, as was mentioned earlier, we are preparing for airification, right? It's getting hotter and drier over time. And so we want desert plants in the landscape that are resilient to that. We provide education, how to get them established and ready for a hotter, drier future. And then we do have a tree bait as well as a pool removal rebate. Also on the screen, we have free adult education classes at Rio Vista. So 2 semesters, that's our university, fall and spring, with a variety of different topics. The next one being container gardening, but it'll be irrigation maintenance, it'll be irrigation scheduling, it'll be choosing plants for pollinators or right plant, right place, just all over the place based on community feedback. Water misuse reports, so the grass in the bottom right, that's not really being watered, the street's being watered, that is water misuse. That is against code, but conservation, like everything, educational approach. We are there to provide the resources and to help. And so we'd like to be first on the scene with those types of instances where landscape watering is going to the street. We'll help adjust that. And then conservation kits. Residents may request a voucher and then go to the libraries. Again, good relationships to pick up free WaterSense certified fixtures. What might be a nice emphasis tonight is the multifamily HOA and commercial programs. By ADWR's terminology, this is non-residential. We just call it what it is. It's multifamily HOA commercial. And so since its establishment, which has only been 2 years, we've essentially doubled programs in those 2 years, again, following the intense requirements of ADWR's increasing. We've interacted directly with and worked with 50-plus properties of this type. And so what does that mean? Those are landscape consultations. Similar to the residents, we'll do leak checks at the meter, we'll walk with the board, the landscaper, the community manager, talk about everything, try to get everyone on the same page if it's possible. We do our best. One of the ways to do that is by getting them into a water budgeting program. So there is an actual dashboard where they can see the weather use, they can see their actual use, and they can see the dollar amount of those differences. And it's just a way for everyone to start to hopefully speak the same language and get on the same page. And throughout all of that, of course, we provide education and resources. We do provide a smart irrigation controller rebate for that and a grass conversion to desert landscape rebate. So same thing as Xeriscape, just desert landscape. And as mentioned earlier, the trade-offs of plant canopy, we require a minimum 50% plant canopy coverage as well as following local codes based on where that landscape is at. quick snapshot of some metrics of the programs we mentioned, water conservation kits, and this is per participant average, would save 11% if they participate in the program, consultation 17, toilets 13, smart irrigation controllers 8, and grass to xeriscape 27, of course, because grass, high water use, xeriscape, low water use. And then since calendar year 18 to calendar year 23, 32 youth events, over 10,000 students, adult events, 78 attendees, more than 3,600. Sustainability dashboard. So some commissioners may already be aware of its existence, but essentially this is a community-driven, community-led plan that Peoria created, and it was published in 2022. So there are several town halls online in the sustainability playlist where the community provided feedback, and with that feedback, this plan was born. And those pillars on the side represent each of those distinct areas. There are 8. So the update here is that we turned that plan into an interactive dashboard. And so those tiles on the top represent each of those pillars. Hover your mouse over it, and you will see what each represent. Since we are tonight here with water resources is the tile that we're going to go through. The text plan snapshot there is on the left. You are very welcome to read the goals, actions, indicators, and outcomes. Not everyone wants to. Most important on that, if you wanted just a quick shot, are the Citizen Choice top actions. These are directly what citizens said they wanted, and so text for text, you can see it says increase rebates and programs for residential customers. We have essentially doubled our programs, and we have increased rebate incentives. Next would be update standards and internal processes to better link development with long-term availability and efficiency. Essentially everything we've talked about tonight. Cody came up here and did it himself with the other code updates. And then propose a new tiered rate structure based on best practices, historical use, and our peers. And that is a common theme throughout the valley, I think, is looking at that. On the dashboard itself for water resources, so now we're on the website, we can go and see goal progress. So there are nice little graphics, and this data is updated annually to provide an easy visual for residents to follow along, to hold ourselves accountable, to see where we're at with our goals. There are also calls to actions. That's the next step for residents to take so that they can contribute toward those goals. We make it easy and convenient. You want to sign up for rebates, all you have to do is click this tile. Take a class, go to Sustainable You, click this tile, so on. And then at the same time, all about interaction and education, there are little quizzes in between. And so the idea of this question, which of the following actions might potentially contribute to at least 20% reduction in water use? That would be installing water efficient appliances, because earlier was mentioned the high efficiency toilet. Same thing with the shower head. You go from a 1.6 to 1.28 gallons per flush, or 2 to 1.5 gallons per minute. That's 20% savings. So there are a variety of those sprinkled throughout, and they are themed according to the pillar that they're in. But that is just a very quick and brief update throughout those. I'm very happy to answer any questions or provide more details.
Can you touch base a little bit on the, I know there's concern out on social media about the turf reduction in some of the parks?
I can explain that it is our Parks Department leading that effort, and that they had conducted a conservation study well in advance of this, which was very intensive and comprehensive. As for the details of its progress or anything of that sort, I would refer to Parks and Mr. Chair, sorry about that. But we did, at least before then, discuss the concept of what is functional versus non-functional turf. That is a very important concept, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Faust.
Mr. Faust would like to elaborate on my question.
Mr. Chair,
I just think there's-
members of the commission, so thank you for kicking that off. I mean, the big key message to the community is this is turf that's specific, and we always use turf and programmable turf. Ultimately, when you look in the parks, it was, in order to conserve water, let's look at the spaces that are not used for recreation. So a great example is if you have a hillside going down into a flat basin, they're going to go ahead and remove that grass on the side and then landscape it back, because ultimately they're watering grass that essentially is not used in that recreational space. And it was a good way to balance it, because when you think about the water consumption within the community, like in your individual house, 65% of your water use is typically going outside of your home. And so we have millions of gallons of water going into watering parks and areas that specifically aren't being used for recreational space within the park. And so that was the overall strategy. So they have about 10 park sites, a rather large amount of acreage of grass, and they've gone through a series of processes now. I think they're on their second spray, where the grass was already somewhat, I'll say, dead or dying because of the heat. And so they've applied some treatment to help they speed that process along. That will continue, through the fall, and then work park by park, pulling that back and replacing it with some additional landscaping, xeriscaping specifically, that does not use water. They'll remove controllers and water distribution from it, ultimately to get to a final space where the grass that is used for recreation still remains in place, but saving water by not watering non-usable or non-programmable turf.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for
Mr.
the
Chair, if I could
thanks for
just
the
clarify, so there's no communication. We do also have the grass conversion program for our HOAs, and we stay far away from the functional turf. We are only focused on that non-functional turf, which, like that picture showed, is the water that's going on the streets, is inaccessible, is high slope. We're not, in conservation, we want water savings, but we want water savings from non-functional grass.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Waitman-Powell?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the elaboration. Who knew we were so interested today? I still am. So thank you, Mr. Treese, for going over that. But I do want to go in depth, because I know the Peoria Sustain and Gain. We get this one at our home, but how often does this one go out? The reason why is because I think obviously we're doing a lot as a city, but the truth is I know that in the Peoria Sustain and Gain we do a great job as a city highlighting the rebates and the classes, and I didn't know we did that many. So great job to you all getting that information out to the community. But how often does this go out? Quarterly? Because I do think that there's more that the community can do, but I think they don't know about that. And I think the economic benefit of the rebate is kind of like a win-win, right? So the more we get that out to our community, I think people want rebates. Because the first thing that I thought, and that may be the mom and me, we have 202, me and my husband, but I seen the two kids there, and I was like, that looks like sensory play in a bucket where they can play with sand, get educated. And I'm sure a lot of moms, for sure when I was a new mom, I wasn't working, right? I was trying to find ways that we could save money, because going from a two-income household, we had to be a one-income household, right? At that time, right? So I just kind of want to know how we can get that out, because I was that mom going to the library and to the different programs. So I just think that if we can do more as a city, we may want to highlight those rebates and talk about that economic benefit. So just want to know how often we're getting this out to the community and what more we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, thank you for your question. We agree, it is totally important, and we are a demand-based program, but we do also proactively engage with the community. So for example, on some of the previous slides, in the marketing, we had a Summarize Your Home postcard that went to every single mailbox in the summer, and on that postcard had our website and programs. At the same time, Sustaining Gain, like you mentioned, thank you for bringing that up. That is an effort between us and Public Works and the Office of Communications, and within that we do highlight our programs as well. But ultimately, we do try to keep everything everywhere, and it is absolutely available on request. We have a form to fill out now for it as well. And anytime we go and present at HOA board meetings or even commission meetings, we'll bring packets of resources. So we try to hit it in a variety of ways and always have it ready to go, and are always looking to improve as well.
Okay, gotcha. I feel like I'm going to be one of those moms coming with you all and saying, let's do one of these at the library, and we can have the kids there. But no, thank you for all that you all are doing. I think that this was very in-depth, and even for me, right, it was in layman's terms, because I was like, okay, we're talking about a lot of things here, but it's awesome to see what the city is doing to get this information out to our residents so that we all can be part of our water conservation and, securing our water. So thank you.
Commissioner Cottrell?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Treese, for this. We've seen these at our house. We use them. I this is excellent information. I hope everybody's getting these. My question, though, is we're probably one of the higher water users because my wife has a nice little raised garden in the back that uses too much water. Is it enough water to warrant maybe adding another category for how to better water tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff like that? You know, it's all shaded, but it uses a lot of water.
Commissioner Contrell, thank you for your question. I think your wife may be really interested in our Sustainable U classes, where we do have vegetable gardening, but we do want to preserve quality of life, and that is a hobby. And we will provide, after consults, for example, if there is a vegetable garden, always send up, well, I am not a gardener myself, send follow-up information, for example, such as the Maricopa County schedule for gardening, just all the different resources compiled and ready to go, which I'm happy to send an email to you as well.
Great, thank you.
I would love to be able, yeah, I'd love to be able to show her, see, we don't need to water it so much, look.
Awesome. Staff have anything else? Ms. Norris, Mr. Treese, thank you so much for your time and your contribution. We appreciate all of your efforts, sincerely. So, thank you. This time, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, item 3R, study session, 2024 zoning and housing code updates.
Chair, members of the commission, give me a moment and we will change. So, in the immortal words of Monty Python, and now for something completely different. All right, good evening, Chair, members of commission. So for this item, staff will be providing an overview of the housing and zoning bills passed during last year's legislative session that will result in upcoming code amendments coming before Planning and Zoning Commission shortly as in next meeting. So now if you've had the opportunity to watch or attend the September 17th City Council study session, tonight will be a slightly abridged version of that. However, the same offer applies that we gave to council, which is if you have questions, feedback, we're more than happy to take that for this evening. So with that, I'd like to spend a few moments first on recapping of last year's legislative session to provide some context before we get into the bills themselves. So this was the 56th Arizona State Legislature, and they did spend 160 days in session. And as you can see from the summary, roughly 1,600 bills were introduced, only 332 were passed. Of those, 259 were signed. Out of those 259, over 100 of them impacted cities and towns in some way. So during the session itself, topical areas included water, housing, and land use. Looking ahead, the expectation is that water, housing, and land use will continue to be a theme going forward. However, in the more immediate realm, and I'll direct you towards the one on the bottom, there were a number of bipartisan bills that led to bills being signed by the governor pertaining to municipal zoning. Those bills were intended to facilitate greater housing affordability by increasing opportunities for diverse housing types and streamlining process. So tonight, we're going to focus on 3 of those bills. They are what we call the Accessory Dwelling Unit Bill, HB 2720, the Adaptive Reuse Bill, HB 2797, Senate Bill 1162, also known as the Rezoning Shot Clock. So the 3 bills identified here have a January 1st, 2025 due date for municipalities to amend their zoning code. So those will be the first that you will see on the docket next commission. There is a 4th bill that is listed within your briefing sheet known as Middle Housing. We've included that in the summary of the bill within the briefing sheet for your reference only. Tonight, we're not going to be discussing it because it has a codification deadline of January 1st of 2026. So we have another year. There may be additional changes. We'll take that conversation on at a later time. So that's the backdrop. Let's start with the first, and I think this commission has had some history on ADUs, so let's talk about it. Also known as the Casita Bill, this was signed by the governor in May of this year. Again, this was a bipartisan supported bill. For a reminder, what is an ADU? So this is an accessory dwelling unit. It is a self-contained living unit on a single-family lot. They're often referred to as granny flats, casitas, etc., and you can see the image on the right. They typically have a separate entrance, sleeping area, kitchen, and sanitation facility, which is what you would see on the floor plan directly below it. They may be attached to the house or detached from the main house. This bill in particular, we believe will have a moderate impact on Peoria. And we'll touch on that in a few. But in particular, ADUs must be allowed in all single-family zoning districts with limited exception. The other key point to know is the law limits the city's ability to address impacts on adjoining properties, which I'll touch on more in depth. Lastly, it has a provision that allows a restricted covenant between private properties. We believe this to mean that it appears that HOAs have the ability within their CC&Rs to preempt state regulations. So that's the backdrop. Let's get into some more of the details. So the number of ADUs allowed. So again, all single-family lots may be allowed up to one detached and one attached accessory dwelling unit. Examples of those are on the screen. When you have a lot that is larger than 1 acre in size, you may have a third ADU if it's considered restricted affordable, which means it's rented out to someone who has up to 80% of the area median income. And that is allowed through a deed restriction or development agreement. The size of the ADUs, the bill regulates that each ADU can be 75% of the house gross floor area or 1,000 feet, whichever is less. Specifically within the bill, it prohibits cities that we cannot regulate or require the following: to comply with the commercial building code or require fire sprinklers. We cannot require more restrictive regulations for building height, lot coverage, et cetera. And there is a maximum of a side and a rear setback of 5 feet. So putting that into perspective, these ADUs can be 5 feet from the rear, 5 feet from the side, and typically a single-family unit can be up to 30 feet. So an ADU can be up to 30 feet tall, 5 feet from the rear, 5 feet from the side. We are not able to require additional parking for these or request for an in lieu fee to offset parking requirements. Additionally, the bill says we are not able to require matching of the design or finish of the house. The city is no longer able or the ability to regulate having a family relationship between the owner and occupant, and that's how we've moved forward with the next gen conversations with some of the home builders. So they typically would have restricted to or promoted family within those secondary areas, but we're not able to require that as part of this bill. The ADU may be allowed as a long-term rental house. We're not able to restrict that. And the city is not able to obligate or require any additional roadway improvements for ADUs that may go in. So that's the context of what the bill says the city may not be able to do. So I have a couple of questions for consideration, and we'll move forward in the conversation a bit. So one of the provisions that is granted within the bill is we can exclude area within the vicinity of a military airport. So let's unpack that a little bit. ADUs would not be allowed within the map area that you see. So for orientation purposes, what you see with red, orange, and yellow is actually Luke Air Force Base. Those are the runway APZ zones, and the kind of squiggly lines are the noise contours. If you go further out and there's a dark boundary that says VMA, that's the vicinity of a military airport. Anybody who has residential units within there, you have to you receive the notice that says you're within and you're subject to noise. So one of the provisions, if we were to move forward with this regulation, would exclude much of the area from Bell Road to Northern Avenue. You would not be able to have ADUs in this particular area. Staff believes that at this point in time, we do not wish to include that in the provision or the draft code going forward for two reasons. Number one, we are respective of Luke Air Force Base and their mission. At the same time, the most impact for additional dwelling units is within the noise contours. There's less of a concern within the vicinity of a military airport. However, as additional units occur in there, noise complaints do occur. So we do want to be respective. But if we were to move the needle and allow accessory dwelling units within our southern portion of the community, this might help with the housing conversation to some degree. So at this point in time, when you see the draft code going forward, we are not including this provision or this allowance within the draft code. Other potential regulations and considerations. There is a secondary component of this bill that says if you are using the ADU for short-term rental, the owner would have to reside in the main property. From a regulatory standpoint, this would be hard to enforce to some degree. And so from a code enforcement perspective, we're not sure we would move the needle if we were to put this provision in. If you have a short-term rental, we do have a registration process now so that if there was a concern, we can address it through existing measures. What I would also say in the next one is the Arizona City Attorneys Association Working Group has suggested a possible restriction on occupancy to no more than 2 persons. Again, from a code enforcement perspective, this is incredibly hard to enforce, and so we're not sure, as Mike likes to say, the juice is worth the squeeze on this one, and so we would not be providing it within the draft code. The bigger question, and one that I want to pose to Commission, and I'm seeing a lot of the love from the provisions here, but going back to our accessory building conversation and all of the additional pergolas, garages, et cetera, that you see on there. So ADUs can be 5 feet from the rear, 5 feet from the side, and up to 30 feet tall. The question to Commission would be, should accessory structures be treated the same for setbacks and height? Staff, from an equity perspective, has difficulty making an argument that they should not be considered the same. And so right now, we would be treating the accessory structures the same as ADUs going forwards in such a case that should these buildings be converted in the future to an ADU, they would have the ability to do so. So I'm going to pause right there and food for thought. Do commissioners have thoughts?
Thank you so much for the presentation, Ms. Deaver. I think that is good. And actually, I'm happy that you brought this up because we're thinking about converting the ADU that we have into my husband's small little man cave, because I have my gland cave, but in the house, right? My question is, would that be for existing properties? Because I think before we got our house, I don't know if there was a specific separation, but now it's just a shed. It's simple. There's nothing there. But for my personal knowledge, right, would that be on existing properties as well?
Chair, members of commission, this encompasses all single-family property within Peoria with existing buildings on it. And so there could be some conversions of sheds and other garages and other items where residents could go back and convert those structures into an ADU once these regulations are approved.
All right, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Commissioner Villaseñor?
Thank you. I certainly, to answer your question, I could make an argument for either way. So I will just give my personal opinion is that no, accessory structure should not be treated the same as this ADU. The whole purpose of HB 2720, if I'm not mistaken, is to help with the affordability crisis, access to additional housing, which I highly support and can definitely look the other way if, my neighbor was doing this, because it's providing housing, which is just so desperately needed. And the barrier that to access housing right now is very tough, especially for young people. I don't think a garage or a pergola is helping with what the goal or the mission of this policy was. So just to answer your question, my personal is no. Thank you.
Commissioner Cottrell?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, wow, I mean, this is a big change being forced on us, it feels like. But I would agree, it helps the housing crisis, and I understand the purpose. If I was a homeowner trying to build the pergola that you see right there, and you told me that it could only be 20 feet tall and had to be 10 feet from the property line or something like that, yet if I built it and enclosed it, all of a sudden it could be taller and closer, that would be frustrating, and I could see that. And I would say, for the same intent, it probably would, I would say yes, because you can't tell somebody that, you're pulling it away from the property line and keeping it short because it's impacting your neighbor, and yet you're totally allowing something else that impacts them even more. So it's a tough balance.
I would like to preemptively apologize to the individuals at code enforcement that are going to have to be fielding complaints from their neighbors that are complaining about the new ADU 5 feet off of the property line. So thank you to whoever that may be. Commissioner Nelson?
Well, so much for local control. Thank you, state legislature, once again. I'll let that lie where it lies. I would say that my concern is, why would we do that? Why would we have an accessory building follow this when the legislature chose to tie our hands with ADUs? That should be a local decision. The people on this commission, the people on city council, that should be based on the values of our community and the people that are elected to represent those people. The fact that the legislature is doing this blanket, and I appreciate the intent. I think there was positive intent here, absolutely. But I would say, because they chose to tie our hands and they're taking away that local decision-making authority with the accessory dwelling units, I'm not clear why we would surrender that authority for accessory buildings. Absolutely not. I wouldn't give an inch on that. So I'd be adamantly opposed to that, joining with some of the other commissioners' comments. That's the expression you're seeing on my face. Laura, you're good at reading. And I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I recognize that. But thank you for getting our input on that, because,
Thank
yeah.
All right.
What's your opinion on it, Chair?
No, I think we're all of the same opinion. I mean, we have no ability to push back on most of this. So, with regards to the housing portion of it.
So, Chair, members of the commission, thank you for that. That's one of three, so we've gotten those questions. Is there any additional feedback that you would like to provide?
Just go back to our previously detailed discussions on, how many meetings did we have on ADUs and accessory? We had quite a few, and we ended up keeping the same setback requirements because we didn't want the abuse of the, violation of these setbacks or shrinking of these setbacks. We had one homeowner that was breaking the rules and was trying to get us to change the code so he can be in compliance, and I think we were adequately and appropriately resistant to that. So I think we hold it as regards to additional structures, but the housing-related stuff that the state legislature is forcing on us, we don't have a choice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's one of three. Shall we go to the next one?
Please.
Adaptive reuse, this is the second particular one, commercial buildings being converted into multifamily. So again, this was a bipartisan bill. We'll walk through the details of this particular one. So the commercial building adaptive reuse in a nutshell, it must allow multifamily residential, or what we call adaptive reuse, in any commercial, office, or mixed-use building on not more than 10% of the existing inventory of existing buildings citywide. That is a lot to unpack in that statement right there. The impact on Peoria is unknown. We are not certain that this will be a measure that is adopted by the development community, so we are putting it in the status of unknown. It does require us to do a baseline inventory of existing buildings citywide. Buildings, not square footages, buildings. And so that is time-consuming, for sure. The city cannot require discretionary review with the conversion, and I'll talk on that one in a moment. There are modified development standards already built into the bill, and we will make that journey together on the next slide. So from a baseline inventory, once we have the inventory established and we have clearly defined what is meant by building, we can modify that percentage of existing buildings available for conversion every 10 years. If we choose to, we can designate commercial or employment hubs where those buildings are excluded from the inventory. The exclusion area cannot exceed 10% of the total existing inventory. So up to 10% of the buildings, we may choose not to do the full 10% allowance. Here are the bigger items for consideration. We cannot require discretionary review with the conversion, meaning we cannot require a rezone, a conditional use permit, or any other discretionary review which requires a public hearing process. None of these applications would come before commission or city council. They would go directly for a site plan review or a tenant improvement process, depending on how the conversion takes place. This would not be something that a resident can object to from a land use conversion standpoint. So in other words, this conversion would be permitted outright from commercial employment to multifamily. The modified standards that are built into the bill, and we're trying to simplify them here, but when I get to building height, bear with me. So parking, it would need to comply with the multifamily residential district parking requirements, or the sum of the uses for mixed-use projects. So if you had commercial, employment, retail, and residential, it would be the sum of the uses, or a qualified parking study in that case to determine. The setbacks are limited to the lesser of the existing standard for multifamily districts or the existing zoning district at the time of development. When we have commercial setbacks, those are often less intense than some of our residential setbacks. And often when it's C2 to C2, that would be a 0 setback line. So that would be the lesser of the setback. When you get to building height, this is one of the most challenging set of provisions in here. The multifamily would be limited to 2 stories on a site within 100 feet of a single-family residential zoning district, or it can go up to 5 stories in height if it's outside of that 100 foot of a zoning single-family district, or The highest allowable height of a multifamily district within 1 mile, which is about 48 feet, give or take a conversation on a zoning district. Or if there's no multifamily district, it's the closest multifamily district to the building if it's outside that 1 mile radius. So that is quite a gymnastic and analysis for staff right there to determine what the building height might be. The density would be the highest allowed for our multifamily density within 1 mile or closest. So the city shall include, but no more than. So this was an interesting set of the provisions. We have to include these, but no more than these, which is an odd kind of configuration. The site plan review process, and it needs to include the utility provider within the review. There needs to be evidence of adequate existing public sewer and water service. So as we were talking water and service needs, this does pose a little bit of challenge in terms of what we're looking at for in the future. It does need to comply with applicable building codes and fire codes. Here's an interesting caveat. There needs to be evidence demonstrating that the building is economically or functionally obsolete, and there is a definition within the bill itself that will be included. What it does not say is for how long that determination needs to be in existence for. The building in question would need to be on a parcel or site between 1 and 20 acres. That goes into the inventory question, so that kind of excludes some of the areas as well. And there needs to be documentation that the redevelopment sets aside up to 20% of the units for moderate income or low income households for up to 20 years. And those two terms are defined within the bill. So we would need to see evidence of that in place prior to the conversion. So potential regulations. So I talked about the vicinity of a military airport. We can bring that into play and exclude the area from Bell to Northern as I identified. If we have properties that are on the historic register, those can be excluded as well. We can look at designating commercial hubs for exclusion as well. So to my point, what is economically or functionally obsolete? The building is in a state of disrepair or has 50% vacancy in gross lease area. But again, it is silent on for how long that may be classified as. So it again goes and sets aside the 20% of the units for moderate income or low income households for at least 20 years. Moderate income in this case is up to the 120% of the AMI, the average median income, and low income up to 80% of the AMI. So with that, yep, that was the last one. Thoughts, feelings, questions? I'm seeing some eyes glazed, glaze over.
Glazing? Oh, they're not glazing. Good stuff.
It is riveting.
It's interesting. I just don't know how much it actually plays within Peoria, because we have very little obsolete office, because we haven't tended to build much for employment purposes, so we don't have much in terms of obsolete buildings. So I think this really plays in older communities, older parts of the metro area. So this is, old office buildings that are, 40 years old that nobody wants to occupy, and it's not economically feasible to renovate them for current standards. So there are cases up and down Central Avenue specifically where these types of conversions are happening. Do I like that the city, the state's forcing these items on us? Not necessarily. I just don't think this one is much in play for us here.
Yep.
It is in Peoria. Commissioner Cottrell?
Can you clarify that 10%? Is this Peoria going to do the inventory and then identify at least 10% of the buildings that are then eligible for this conversion? Or is it the developer comes in and says, here I am and I'm under that? I mean, how does that function? How do you see it functioning?
Chair, members of the commission, to some degree, we're all learning together. There was a lot of obtuse or lack of clarity within the conversation as to how that is defined, and so we're seeking additional information in that regard and best practices. So in terms of setting the inventory, first, what is a building? We're going to define what a building is. And then we're going to go walk through the 1 acre to 20 acre parcels. And then we're going to consider if we want to include outside of vicinity of a military airport. So when we get down to it, short answer is we're going to walk through the methodology and get it ready to go as we do the inventory. But to Chair's point, we're not sure about the likelihood impact because of the inventory of multi-story buildings that may be ripe for consideration. So we're not necessarily seeing that we have this provision used a lot.
Yeah, I agree with the chair that, you might do that inventory and you narrow it down and there's 5 buildings, and so that means one of them. And so as the city, I would hope you could say, you know what, this one building is okay if a developer wants to do that, fine. The rest of them, and then at least the city gets some control over converting these. And just for reference, we are seeing, and it is not in Peoria, but we are seeing a lot of these office buildings that are surprisingly young, 15 years old, 20, after 2000, being gutted, leave the outside, tear the floors out in the metal and convert it to light industrial for manufacturing. It's happening all over the place. Not converted to residential, because the zoning, I think this is part of the intent, is that allows that to happen. The zoning in most places wouldn't let that happen.
Okay. Commissioner Nelson?
Thank you. I was hoping you could expand on that obsolescence definition. I mean, do they break out like curable versus incurable obsolescence? Like you could repair a place and bring it up to speed and begin using it again, or there could be a sewer plant next door you can't do anything about. Do they get into that in the definition of obsolescence?
Chair, Commissioner Nelson, they did not get into that level of specificity. We will be providing as part of the packet and part of the website information is the actual bill online, so you can see the language versus the proposed code changes that we're talking about. And I'm going to rely on Cody because it's been a little bit longer night and he's better familiar with this. We do have property development standards that may speak to this more within the city code that I can't articulate. Cody, can you touch on those?
Is it particularly for the obsolescence? Okay. Chair, Commission members, the city had gone through a few years ago and done an inventory of buildings that were found to not meet the property maintenance code. And so there's an inventory of buildings that we evaluated to say, okay, we need to coordinate with the property owner to get some remediation on these buildings in order to kind of move the needle from an obsolescence standpoint so that we don't just have things rotting into the ground all around the city. And the purpose of that was not only for city beautification, but also safety and functionality. Really, those final 2 items were the driver behind that and trying to kind of inventory those items. But all that to say, we do have a property maintenance code that we being code compliance in particular, and our building safety division have the ability to cite to, but that inventory was the last one that I'm aware of that we actually went through. I think from a definition standpoint, particularly to your question, Chair, Commissioner Nelson, is that it depends on what the issue is with the building. It could be, as you see here, that hasn't been rented out. Well, that seems like a pretty fast and loose way to go about calling something obsolete because, you build it, it doesn't rent out for a month. Is it obsolete then? Or is the question more so, is the roof coming down? Have termites eaten the building alive? So I think there's several factors to evaluate before you call it, actually obsolete rather than just the rental component that's referenced within the state legislature.
It feels to me by adding economically obsolete, it really leaves the door open to significant interpretation because they want these things to happen. My gut of the
May I ask
intent.
Yeah, that's a
Please.
great point. Just a follow-up point, question. Is it only the property owner that could initiate this action? Could the city approach a property owner and say, we've got an option for you here, another option's now available to convert this property and to work with them to incentivize them, whatever it may take?
Chair, Commissioner Nelson, it's a great question. Right now, the task in front of us is to put provisions in place and to get the code ready to go within a January 1st deadline. We haven't gone 3 steps down. What I would circle back with, as by way of illustration, what Cody was talking about, we did have significant interest in the Edwards Hotel to try to convert that from a hotel use to residential at some point in time. Given the status of disrepair, it was economically not feasible for them to make that conversion, and ultimately it became such a safety issue that it was better for it to be demolished and removed and start again than to make that full conversion. In that case, it just was not possible. So going forward, we're going to establish the criteria to Cody's point. We do have property maintenance code. We're going to work through, at a minimum, what we're starting with is in a state of disrepair or has 50% vacancy in gross lease area for that definition. We may add some more meat on the bones as we go forward with the code amendment to clarify what does that really mean. As we think through these, there may be an appropriate time where the city approaches for conversion because it makes sense. Would we do it through this manner? Maybe, maybe not. We may do it through a different manner and mechanism, probably through a public process as well for feedback from folks.
You
So
know, that example you raised one last question. If you could give me just one more. Thank you.
You're good.
All right. Is there any protections for buildings of historical significance where I'm thinking of the firehouse, or I'm thinking of that's probably a bad example, but you mentioned the hotel, maybe not the best example either, but if there's something that architecturally has historical significance in the city, is there protections for that where you have to preserve the outside?
Chair Commissioner Nelson, I'm going to put on my other hat for my long-range strategic
Yeah,
thinking and HPC. So I'm going to paraphrase to some degree. Even if a building is on the local or historic or national registration, there is still the ability to make changes to that structure and/or tear it down. That's the long and the short. So even if you have registration in place, it doesn't guarantee that that building will continue in perpetuity. Aside from that, from the Edwards standpoint, and I want to be very clear because folks thought because of the age of the building it qualified, it did not meet the criteria in place to be considered historic. There's a number of facets that go into making that determination, and we want to be very clear. Just because something is of the age doesn't necessarily make it historic in nature. So, for example, Old Main is on the national registration given its architectural significance. It's still in use and still has function, and so from time to time, PUSD approaches us when they go to make maintenance changes to the building. They try to follow the guidelines in which is for the registration. And there are certain requirements that you can do, certain requirements that you shouldn't do. But again, at the end of the day, that registration status does not protect the building from being demolished.
Thank you. Commissioner Cottrell, you have one more?
One more quick question, thank you, Chair. Regarding that, it seems like there's a potential loophole, and I don't know if the language is in that state rule about demolishing. I just could imagine, a building that is in disrepair, it does qualify, and your choice is, am I going to refurbish this thing as they described in that rule, or can I just tear it down? and so a developer might have some mechanisms to kind of get around the process and say, I'm going to acquire this specifically for the point of tear it down, and now I get to use it for residential in a non-residential zone. And if there's any way that we could get that in our zoning code, if the state law allows that, that would be good. They're going to be sneaky if they can, if it makes them money.
Chair, Commissioner, so noted. We'll take a look at that.
Okay.
We have one more. Shall we continue on? Okay.
Is there, before you start on 2721, did we skip 1162 for a specific reason?
As in this one that we shall talk about now?
Yeah, good. No, I know. I'm sorry, 1162.
The shot clock bill?
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. So in the long nomenclature, it's residential rezoning and housing assessment, again bipartisan, signed by the governor in April. We affectionately call it the shot clock bill. So I'm going to touch briefly on the housing assessment portion because it's a two-part piece. I'm not going to go too much in depth. I'll spend a little bit more time on the shot clock portion of the conversation. So as part of the bill, there's a housing assessment that needs to be published on or before January 1st of the year. It's required to be updated every 5 years thereafter and submitted annually to the Arizona Department of Housing. There are defined reporting requirements within the report. This is an ongoing maintenance obligation placed on Peoria now, and it requires significant tracking on a yearly basis. The good news is we had a formation of a report in 2023 that was underway by Neighborhood and Human Services Department. They are now actively engaged with a consultant to take that report, add the additional tracking mechanism, and they are on board to meet the 2025 conversation. That will go to City Council for conversation. So that piece of it is separate. The Commission will not see that. From a shot clock standpoint, we actually have some good news to report, and I do want to spend a little bit of time on this one. The bill requires what we call administrative completeness for a first review to be determined within 30 days and a resubmittal to be determined within 15 days. So what does that mean? And let's talk about the development process. When a developer submits their application, what we do is a completeness check. Do you have all of the items? Is it in a state that we need? Do we have everything we need? Is a fee paid? Are we ready to go? The bill says you need to do that within 30 days. What I want to point out is the impact on Peoria. Absolutely none. The reason being is applicants can file 24/7 via our development portal. Our completeness checks on average are 2 days. Not 30, not 15, 2. We do extend to 5 days during a holiday week or if it's a weekend submittal. So they can submit Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but that completeness check generally happens in a 2-day time frame. The gentleman behind me, Mr. Faust, every time we go on a monthly basis, we are reporting out what our target service level is. And our target service level for this is 10 days for each submittal. We are averaging 2, so absolutely no impact on this one. We are working with on a couple of things to make the intake process easier, because what we're finding is those who are applying are not following our process, not understanding what they need to do, or they're just not taking the time to do what they need to do. And so we need to have a more transparent conversation with them to get them in the door a little bit faster. But from our standpoint, we're checking, and you have whether you're in or out within 2 days on average. The next piece of the bill says an approval or denial of that case needs to happen within 180 days. And the city may grant a 30-day extension if there are extenuating circumstances. The applicant may require 30-day extensions at a time. The shot clock that is built within the bill does not talk about, does that include resubmittal time or not? And it does not allow us to have an organic conversation to resolve the issues. So if we're getting close to that 180 days, our first position has to be a no, or we may consider additional measures. The impact of this particular portion of the bill is very limited. Why? Because it is specifying non-PAD and PCD cases. What does that mean? Pretty much every application before commission going forward on a rezone is typically a PAD or PCD. We could probably count on hand how many standard rezoning cases we have. It is a very low number every year. And when we process those cases, and for example, the initial zoning that has to be triggered by staff that we've been talking about, that is a standard zoning case. We process those significantly under 180 days. They're very straightforward. There's not a lot of complexity to those cases. What I do want to point out is out of the development process, about 75 days that we spend is just regulatory requirements. We have noticing requirements built in. Those are the signs going up, the legal ads, et cetera. We have statutory requirements, and of those, 75 days are generally taken up just by those statutory requirements. So should this provision extend to PAD and PCD cases, we may consider a possible waiver option similar to one that we use for another bill, SB 1597, which means you want to go through the process. We haven't quite resolved all of the issues, but in good faith effort, we're going to work together, but we're going to take the time clock off the table. And so they may voluntarily file a waiver, and we can continue that dialogue until we have completion of the conversation. So I think that would be, so should this extend beyond the non-standard zoning cases into PAD, PCD, we may look at a waiver option in that case.
Does that bill give us that authority?
It does not say we cannot do that, but right now, we're under the 180 days for a standard case. That might be something that we pick up later on to address it if it becomes an item in a bill. All right, so that's been fun. Were there any questions on that piece of it?
The 180 days, does that include going through planning and zoning and city council, or is that just staff approval to get it onto our agendas?
Chair, Commissioner, that is 180 days to council approval. And of those, 75 days would be eaten up approximately with regulatory noticing requirements. So about 190 days in, we would have to offer up a decision. Do you want to go forward, or what do we want to do in this case? Again, very limited number of cases that this bill actually impacts, and we'll work through those possible through a waiver option if it's required.
What does the bill say on ramifications if we don't meet those timelines? Is it deemed approval?
Chair, members of the commission, we would not let it get past 180 days because we would.
Somebody would get a stern talking to, but I'm curious to know what the ramifications are if we don't.
Chair, offhand, I do not know. Let me get back to you. Let me reread it so I very concisely and articulate what is in the bill and what isn't in the bill. Part of what we are finding is what we may think to expect in a bill language is not there. So let me go back and refresh my memory, and I'll get the answer for you.
Okay. Commissioner Cottrell?
Oops.
Thank you, Chairman. On this one specifically, and you said all of these are triggered to start in January of the next year. This one seems like it actually puts some onus on the developer or whoever's requesting the rezoning, because now they're under that clock and they know that at 179 days, you're going to say no, even if they're dragging their own feet. If somebody comes in December and then this becomes law in January, have you thought about what that transition is? Are you going to allow them to stay under the current rules, or do they have to now follow these rules?
Chair, Commissioner Contrell, thank you very much. You have keyed me up perfectly for one provision I forgot to mention, which is as we move forward in this particular one, we have talked about doing a cleanup of the code last year for structural reasons. So part of when we are working on the code for this particular shot clock conversation, we would like accountability for the applicant as well as staff on this. Currently, you have up to a year in order to resubmit. So that is why we've had a couple of rezoning cases that have been 2017, 2018 numbers. Sorry, Cody. Not, and that is correct, not because of staff, because when you look at the breakdown of the numbers, less than 50% of the time, in those cases, it's in staff's hands. 50, 60, 70+% of the time, it's in the applicant's hands, and they're asking for the continuance, and they're taking out the year, and we keep dragging the conversation on. So part of the changes that we are recommending is to make accountability for the applicant as well, that they resubmit within 6 months of when they receive our comments. And so I think that would be to keep us accountable for what we need to do on a review versus having them be responsive to us to make sure their project is a success as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea, and even shorter than 6 months, you know, because there is a definite strategy when it's controversial rezoning to just drag it out and hope that all the neighbors forget about it. And so,
And chair members of the commission, I'd like to also point out 2 other things that we do provide metrics for, which is how many reviews does it take to get through the process. Our standard, what we call service level agreement or target number of review days is 35 days per review. And so we're tracking that. Did we hit our percentage of our target review? If we're going past 2+ reviews, why? And we're starting to go into the dissecting of why that's occurring. So there's a lot more statistical analysis that we're going to want to reshape the conversation in what it takes to get to a rezoning process and have it be more transparent to our residents. So and I think it would be worth the conversation to show the development process on the screen and the standard timeframes that we're looking at, so folks have a general idea of what's all involved on that.
Okay. Commissioner Nelson.
Just a quick question on the process, Lori, just kind of a broader question on all these code amendments. Are we working on these code amendments independently, or are we taking advice from MAG or the League of Cities and Towns? Are we talking to our neighboring communities? How are we approaching that?
Chair, members of the commission, yes, we are on a deadline. However, a couple of things. Number one, we have an internal working group that is a multidiscipline in approach. So working with the city attorney's office, working with code enforcement, working with our building officials, with our fire officials, et cetera, all together, working in and going through the conversation. At the same time, I mentioned the ACAA and the League of Cities. They're also offering up model ordinances and things of that nature. City staff are communicating with our counterparts in other cities to see how they are approaching the conversation as well. So when I get to the next slide in terms of timeline, it is very tight. And I'm going to remind everybody this is a starting draft and we are expecting changes coming out, but it's going to be very quickly in terms of we're up against the January 1st deadline. So that is a beautiful segue into we were preparing to draft on and get drafts up on the website as of Monday. Heard some interesting and very pointed feedback on the ADU conversation. So we might take a moment to look at our draft and see if it's where we need it to be, and we might make some tweaks. So the goal is still October 7th. We'll announce to commission when it's posted. With that said, we're back to you in October 17th for a working study session on the actual code. And commissioners, I'm not going to lie because we're doing a very heavy substantive cleanup as part of it because it's either go big or go home. you're going to have a very large packet. And so for those of us who can remember what the yellow pages look like, you have 2 sections short of the full Happy Meal of the zoning ordinance that will be delivered to you on the 17th. In order to make what we need, not only are we spending the time to address what the legislature requires, we have to look forward, modernize the code, and this is the opportunity. So we're going to take the time and do it. So I apologize in advance. The trees that we put into place, we're going to be killing a few when we give you the packets next time. So with that said,
I think we have a couple,
Okay.
couple last questions. Commissioner Nelson?
So just some clarification, you said the draft chapters are completed, but you're going to tweak them, so you're going to incorporate the feedback we gave you tonight, so we should hold off looking at those?
Chair, members of the commission, we will go back into the drafts. Staff will make an assessment whether we need to make tweaks or we continue to roll out on Monday. If we make tweaks, we will announce out and we'll start posting to the website of when that ETA, of when it will be posted on. But it will be in advance of the packet being presented to commission on the 17th. So is it the 7th? Not 100%. We need to do a discount double check, so to speak. Go back through, see if it's where we want to be on a few of these items, and then we'll start posting to the website. So folks will be able to review, comment, and we're going to start incorporating that into errata sheets that we've seen. But just as we're talking, I want to be cognizant of folks may want to comment, but the legislature has tied our hands on quite a few items. And so it will be thank you for your comments, but we still need to address it this direction. So I just want to be very clear, we are definitely taking feedback, but there are certain things that we cannot do on some of these.
I'm just particularly
items.
concerned about the accessory building piece of this. It seemed like you were inclined, or the city's inclined to lump the accessory building into the ADU code amendment, and I just want to make sure that we've done all we can to prevent that, because you heard some pretty strong feelings, from myself included, and
Well, not just from this meeting, but from our
from our
10
community.
prior meetings on
And 10 prior
accessory
meetings.
structures.
So I just want to make
Commissioner
sure I'm
Nelson's
being
not breaking
explicit.
any.
Chair, Commissioners, we understand the passion, and we're going to have the conversation. So again, we're going to go back, we're going to do a debrief, and we're going to make our best assessment and recommendation going forward. Will that draft be 100%? It may not be. We have a lot to work on here.
And just if you can also, when we get back together in 2 weeks, let us know what happens if the clock does run out.
I will do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So 2 other things to point out on this particular one. We have November 7th as an action item for commission. Again, we may consider or move that date because we have the 7th and the 21st. So that's a placeholder for now, but that's where we would have been landing this. There is one and only one date for city council in December. We have to hit December 17th. If not, if we miss that date, and to Chair's point, if we miss that date, the regulations go in effect without us having any say with what happens on some of these bills.
Thank you.
Couple last slides. Again, as a reminder to the folks possibly online, this is the website. We're going to have information, contact information, and some additional other items on there. And just a reminder of things to come. That's it, Chair.
November 7th. Okay. All right. Next item.
Last but not least, shall we continue on the agenda?
Yep, 2721.
Okay.
Are we not talking about that today?
Chair, is that middle housing?
Yeah,
We will reserve that for another time and place.
got it. Okay, it's just in the packet, so, all right. We'll do a call to the public for any non-agenda items. We have no speaker request form, so I'll close the public comment. Reports from staff?
Chair, members of the commission, we will see you back on the 17th. Do have a good sizable binder to handle the packet coming before you. We will see you then. We will be diving into the nuts and bolts on these particular sections. So with that, again, upcoming meetings for November, we're going to send out a survey to see if the 7th, 21st, or if it becomes the 14th. So look for that from Della coming soon. That's it.
Thank you. And any updates from the commission? Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Yeah.